almost everyone is
Welcome
mad.
everybody to another morning edition of me still wearing
You may
my
notice
pajamas. We'd like
that
to invite you
I'm
today
not
to just kind of
all
see
there
how this test will
myself.
go. So, of course, we're testing equipment. We're seeing how everything fits and is situated so that we can do a good
Can
video
you
for
stand on your
YouTube.
head?
I am testing right now music just in the background, just kind of see how she goes, see how it sounds when I do this. Just doing a little work this morning, considering Magick. For those of you who are not aware of what Magick is, that would be Magick with a K. So we're not talking about Magick as is typically known. Pop culture these days seems to be influenced by it more and more each day, but it is something as old as time itself and is nothing new. And Magick with the K really does have its roots in Latin, and I'm pretty sure that any biblical scholars would have heard the word magus. Some pronounce it magus. I like magus because it sounds like magic. Kind of makes more sense to me. But Magick with a K. So Magick with a K, I'll tell you what it isn't. Magick with a K is not sleight of hand David Copperfield type of magic. Magick with a K is defined by a magus, a ceremonial occultist. His name was Aleister Crowley. Honestly, this gentleman would happen to be right there. If you can see that. Yeah. So this gentleman right there, he lived from 1875 to 1946. He was renowned for many things, if not infamous. Aleister Crowley was responsible for the returning of magic, I believe, not solely, but had a dominant influence in the 20th century. And he would have lived from 1875 to 1946, like was mentioned. And Aleister Crowley was a great many things, but was typically self-proclaimed to be the Beast, as in Revelations. And I'm not sure. I think interpretation opens it up. I'm not exactly sure if he believes he was the Beast, like the mark of the beast, 666, in all reality and truth, but he did and was referred to as the Beast. Many other titles this gentleman possessed. Aleister Crowley influenced the 20th century, so much so that he's actually even on the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album cover. Aleister Crowley even makes little cameos in a lot of pop culture, even Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure, when Pee Wee goes into the magic shop and they pull out their big head. So when it's bald and big at the one of the when Pee Wee does that, he sees it. That was Aleister Crowley. And Aleister Crowley defines magic with a K as the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. And really what that means is, and we'll break it down real quick. So the science and art, so it's both the scientific method and artistic method, the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. Really what that means is anything that we do to try to create influence into any situation would be and is considered manipulation, which usually holds a negative connotation in and of itself. I think that when any of us we think about manipulation, we think of it's usually negative, or like that person's trying to manipulate me. That's not good. But manipulation in its pure sense is not in and of itself evil in any way, shape, or form. Manipulation is, if we were to even sit down and and we have the intention, and that's one of the major things, intention. We have the intention of procuring money, and we sit down and we write a letter to whomever it may be. We write this letter as elegantly and eloquently as we possibly can, with the sole purpose to try to persuade and or really manipulate another person to give us this money. This is manipulation. And above all things, in reference to what we're speaking about today, this is magic. So if you look at it from this definition, magic is manipulation. It is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with one's will, the self. So anything that it is that you're trying to create on this planet Earth, this is magic. And a lot of people are unfamiliar with this particular type of magic, but it really does help. It really does make perfect sense. And a lot of pop culture, we have Harry Potter. This is a very dominant sort of magical theme in our contemporary society, and magic is certainly there. And usually magic in the world, the wizarding world of Harry Potter, is done by incantations or spells, where one uses, in this case, Harry Potter's world, they primarily use Latin. In each one of these spells, we could have a, for instance, really. So let's make it very simple. Now, Harry Potter, when he's many times he's needed a flashlight, he has taken his wand out, and he then has the incantation of Lumos, and all of a sudden this brilliant white light comes out. Lumos in Latin would actually mean light. So we see magic in popular culture typically done in this fashion, which we think of witches, we think of wizards, we think of sorcery, sorcerers, sorceresses. So we've got many contexts, and pop culture is certainly bringing magic into our world more and more every day. But magic is as old as time itself, and magic has a deeper root in existence as we know it, more so than we would ever want to believe. Now, magic doesn't necessarily have to be some fictional realm where we do have a wand and we wave it and we just magically are whisked away to another realm. That isn't necessarily the way that magic works. It can probably work on a level such as that when one has become what we consider to be a master or supreme magus or magus, but this is not typical. A lot of the times when people perform ceremonies, and this is contemporary times, in terms of people performing magic, they would have to practice it for years. They would be doing certain exercises daily for a very significant amount of time before one could even, I believe, begin to see immediate results. So magic is something that we would want to practice on a daily level. Magic is something that we would want to create into a discipline, into our own personal lifestyle, and it's really not an incredibly immediate thing. It doesn't actually just happen magically by the flip of a wrist or the wave of a wand, or necessarily, and I say necessarily, a word uttered. However, with the practice of magic over time, one could do a great many things with a word. And magic is, in many respects, the word. The words that we use, the words that come from our mouths that we utter. And how would one manipulate any situation or strive to get something that they're after or that they want? Now, this would require words, whether it be, just as earlier mentioned, a letter, or this would actually be in a conversation or pleading with somebody. And again, we'll use the example of trying to procure money. And this is something that, again, words would be instituted in order to achieve the goal. So we have to understand creation, and we have to understand origin. We have to understand the beginning. We have to understand history. We've got to understand language. There's many things that we must understand, I believe, before we can really get a handle on what exactly magic with a K is. So today we're just kind of touching on some brief topics. We're going to just do Magic 101. So I just wanted to give you guys a nice little introduction into magic itself, magic with a K, and to be able to distinguish and differentiate between the two types of magic that do exist. And again, I just want to say that it's not to say that magic with a K is entirely different from magic with a C. One would be in our contemporary times, magic with a C would tend to be that sleight of hand, pull the rabbit out of a hat sort of thing. And we would go to a show and we would see a Houdini, who's no longer with us, but we would see a Harry Houdini. We would see a David Copperfield. We would see a Chris Angel. These are magicians. But again, I just want to point out, it's not to say that these magicians who are illusionists and really are creating tricks of the mind in order to convince one that it is magic, it's stage magic. It's not even to say that these particular gentlemen do not and are not involved in occultism, because the likelihood of that sort of crossing paths, it's very likely. So magic with a C and magic with a K are different, yet they do hold similarities, and they do have a similarity and do share similar ground and would cross into worlds. Not always the case, but in many instances that it would be appropriate to state that magic with a C and magic with a K share similarities and do come from probably the same root, which we've been speaking about, words. And the word and creation and manipulation and magic. So I just wanted to give you guys a real quick introduction to magic with a K. We'll just call this Magic 101.
Said, smiling face with hearts, my naked photos, winking face with stuck out tongue, nakedphotos.club.
Hilarious. So this is Magic with a K 101. And that right there was, well, I believe that was, let's see, that was a chat room for Thelema. And we're going to get into Thelema a little bit later. But today I just wanted to briefly touch down on the subject of magic with a K. So I just want to thank you guys for stopping by, dropping in, taking a listen. This in many ways is a test. But yet this still held merit.
Ballback said, does banning the bot impose on their own digital will? Thinking face.
Interesting. So as these messages come through, we are actually touching down on deeper subjects. It would seem superficial if one were not to understand where its source is from. That is from a Thelemic chat room, and we are actually going to get into Thelema a little bit later, but today we got into magic. Today was Magic Introduction 101. So thank you guys for joining today, and I'll see you
Jacob
guys
said
again.
Helios.
Most everyone.
See you guys again real soon.
You may have noticed that I'm not all there myself.